Hello children. So let us continue with the remaining topics left over in the first chapter, chemical reactions and equations. So before going to the next topics, we will just brush up what we did in the previous session. So I wanted to remember what we discussed. So this is very important part. Right? Whatever we did should be recalled before we go to the next class. So if you go on remembering one by one, we first discussed about chemical reactions and equations and why they are needed. Then we went to the topics changes occurring in and around us. On that we came to know that there are two types of changes, and if you remember them, they are physical change and chemical change. We discussed examples on them. Then we came to the topic chemical reaction. What is it? Then how can we represent chemical reaction in a very precise and understandable manner? We made use of chemical equations. Then balancing those chemical equations, we follow law of conservation of mass. And how to write a chemical equation? If you remember, reactants should always be on the left hand side and products should always be on the right hand side. Then we discussed the first type of chemical reaction, that is combination reaction. So we further go into the topics now, where as there are two types of changes in nature, in the same way, depending on temperature, reactions can also be classified into two types, right? So if you remember them, you might have heard those. They are called as exothermic and endothermic reactions, right? These are based on temperature. So let us discuss about them one by one, right? So as I told, depending on temperature, reactions are classified into two types. One is exothermic reaction and endothermic reactions, right? So as you can see there, an exothermic process releases heat and causes the temperature of the immediate surrounding to rise. So what does that mean? So always in an exothermic reaction, heat is released into the atmosphere. So we can even say that energy is released. So the reactions in which energy or heat is released into the atmosphere or surrounding, immediate surrounding is called exothermic reaction. So one by one, let us discuss about this and let us take some examples. So in your screen, on your screen, you see I have written glucose and oxygen gives rise to carbon dioxide and water and energy. What is this? So if you remember the first slide, we discussed about the changes around us, right? So I told you might have cooked some food in your house. That food is served and you consume that food. So most of the food source that we consume are carbohydrates. So what are carbohydrates? See, carbohydrates are energy blocks, complex energy blocks. So we need carbohydrates to survive. The main source of energy for us is carbohydrates. That's why most of our food that we consume contains carbohydrates, like wheat, rice, and non-vegetarians eat different kinds of non-vegetarian food like fish, chicken, or lamb, goat. So they are main source of carbohydrates. So these carbohydrates are taken in. When they go inside, we know that when the food goes inside our body, it undergoes the process of digestion, right? From it starts from mouth, right? So then carbohydrates are broken down into polysaccharides, which are complex food molecules, then disaccharides, monosaccharides, and finally it will come down to stage where it gets converted into glucose. As you can see there, glucose. This is the energy block, glucose. So how does this glucose, or how does this glucose get converted into energy? Remember, we are all respiring day to day, right? If we stop breathing, we'll die. So what is it breathing does? See, this oxygen, we breathe in oxygen. So this oxygen is used for combustion of glucose. So this is very important to remember. Our food gets digested, it gets converted into glucose. So just by digestion, energy is not released. So when it comes to a stage where glucose is produced, this glucose undergoes combustion by the oxygen present in our body, and carbon dioxide, water and energy. These are three products that are formed, right? So this energy is utilized to do day-to-day work. So the energy or the heat produced in our body is by this combustion goes inside our body, right? So that's why digestion of food can be taken as a exothermic reaction, can be considered as an exothermic reaction because it releases heat. Then respiration, right? Respiration, breathing is also a exothermic process. So let us discuss one more example about exothermic reaction, right? Remember, heat should be released. So can I remember anything? Exothermic reaction, right? See, most of you are sportsmen, right? You go to different kinds of sports. So when you go to sports, do you realize you take glucose powder with you? So now and then, as soon as you feel tired, what will the PT teacher will do to you? He'll put some powder, glucose powder in your mouth. What do you feel? Don't you feel cold in your tongue? What is that? Heat is getting released, and in that particular area where glucose powder is put in your mouth, you feel cold, right? So that is one example of exothermic reaction. Next, nowadays, right, what are you doing due to coronavirus or COVID-19? You are applying alcohol based hand sanitizers on your hand. So if you observed, you feel cold, right, as soon as you apply that hand sanitizer. Again, what is that? Heat is released, that's why your hand become cold, right? So these are some of the examples of exothermic reactions. Next, the other type is endothermic reaction. So it's exactly the reverse of exothermic reaction. So in this process, heat is absorbed, that means energy is absorbed and the surrounding becomes cool. Heat is absorbed, surroundings become cool, right? So melting of ice. So I'll give you one question. Let me see how many of you will think. Which is more cold, melting ice or freezing water? Listen the question very carefully. Which is more cold, melting ice or freezing water? So let me see how many of you will answer for this. I want with the reason, exact reason why this one is more cold on the group, right? So I expect everyone will answer this. Fine. So these are some of the examples there for, so I will not explain this. Once the answer is there, I will go through it. Okay, so the second type of chemical reaction is called as decomposition reaction. So where a single reactant breaks down to give simple products. This is a decomposition reaction. So let us see. As you can see here, a big substance breaks down to form smaller substances. Right, so this is called as a decomposition reaction. It is also called as thermal decomposition. So these are some examples there. Ferrous sulfate crystals. S means solid, as you can see there in the example. Ferrous sulfate, solid means ferrous sulfate is crystal. Right? Ferrous sulfate crystal by nature are green in color. So on heating ferrous sulfate crystal, they decompose to ferric oxide, sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide. Gases are released, right? So this is in the presence of heat, or ferrous sulfate crystals are heated and we get ferric oxide and sulfur dioxide and sulfur trioxide gases are released. Next we have lead nitrate. Again, on heating lead nitrate, we get lead oxide, nitrogen dioxide and oxygen gases are released. So these are some of the examples of decomposition reaction. So the thing you need to remember here is, in both the cases we are making use of heat. Just by keeping them, they won't decompose. So here lead nitrate crystals as well as ferrous sulfate crystals are heated and they decompose into smaller products. Next is, as you can see there, calcium carbonate, which is nothing but limestone. So if you remember, again try to establish links between the topics that we have discussed. So how did calcium carbonate form? If you remember, slaked lime reacts with carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere, right? Okay, so the same, but this is natural. The calcium carbonate can be always obtained in that manner also, and calcium carbonate is present naturally in the nature in the form of limestone, right? What is limestone? Limestone is a soft rock in nature, and calcium carbonate is also the chemical formula for marble. You know marble. So calcium carbonate. So what do you do? So calcium carbonate powder on heating decomposes to calcium oxide and carbon dioxide gas is released. So this is again, what is this? Calcium oxide is quicklime, right? So this quicklime has a huge industrial applications. The cement that we use in a home for construction and for so many other works. So this calcium oxide or quicklime is a very important raw material in the manufacturing of cement and cement industries. So that's why many cement industries are established near limestone deposits. So for example, if you remember, there is a place called Wadi in Andhra Pradesh, right? It is a very big industrial hub for manufacturing of cement. All big cement factories are set up there, because in Andhra Pradesh we have good deposit of limestone, right? Even there are other ways of producing cement, but the best quality cement should contain a good proportion of limestone. So that is present in Andhra Pradesh. We have a good deposit near Tadpatri and all. So that's why in Wadi, it's a place in Andhra Pradesh where we have the cement factories. So this is one of the very important industry application, can be asked in exam. Fine. Okay, so again let's discuss about these two examples, right? So here we have silver chloride. So if you place silver chloride, you take it in a porcelain or your cup saucer or just a china dish, right? If you take silver chloride powder and keep it in sunlight, it just decomposes into silver and chlorine gas is liberated. In the same way, silver bromide, then again you keep it in sunlight, it gets decomposed to silver and bromine. So in all the above reactions, what did you see? What is common? Everywhere you are using heat, right? Sometimes you need more heat if the bond between the bond between the positive and the negative ion in the compound is strong. You need more heat. For example, here we need more heat because it's why we do it in industry. And as you can see there, this in a silver chloride and silver bromide, just sunlight is sufficient to break the bond and make the compound to decompose. Next very important example for decomposition reaction is electrolysis of water. This diagram is very important and can be asked for 2 marks, so I want you people to practice this diagram and put it on the group. So electrolysis of water, why it is carried out? So it has it has industrial applications as well as laboratory. We can do this simply. One of the year we did it in our exhibition where we carried out electrolysis of water. So why do we do this? That's the first important thing to know. We do it to get pure hydrogen and oxygen gases, right? So what happens? It's very simple setup. In a what we can say glass tumbler, by making holes at the bottom, you insert a cathode and anode and fix them properly so that no leakage of water happen, right? And you place 2 inverted test tubes over them. The ends of the anode and cathode are connected to the battery. So as soon as electric current is passed, so first thing we need to know that anode is always what? Anode is positively charged and cathode is negatively charged. So what happens? H2O contains, or water, it's a chemical formula of water, contains a positive ion and negative ion. Hydrogen is positive ion, oxygen is negative ion. So on passing electric current, again decomposition reaction, remember H2O breaks down into H plus and O2 minus, right? So it's again example of decomposition reaction. On passing electric current, water molecule breaks down into hydrogen and oxygen. So when as anode is negatively charged, anode being positively charged, it attracts negatively charged oxygen atoms towards it, and oxygen goes inside and deposits here on the top. And cathode being negatively charged attracts hydrogen, this goes on the top and gets deposited here. The process goes on continuing, and after some time we can see the gap. Initially it is very difficult, but after some time of the reaction, or when the reaction goes longer, you can see gaps like this on the top. Can you observe here, children? This is less and this is more, means hydrogen gas is collected more than what? Oxygen. Why is that? Can anyone have a guess about it? It's a very important question that might come up. See, just remember the chemical formula of water. What is this? H2O, right? So every molecule of water breaks down, releases 1 atom of oxygen and 2 atoms of hydrogen. That is very important, right? Every molecule of water breaks down, releases 1 atom of oxygen and 2 atoms of hydrogen. That's why what happens? Always the collection of hydrogen in the test tube will be more than oxygen, right? So again a question might come up, how can you prove that hydrogen gas is released during electrolysis of water, right? So it's a very simple. Take the test tube, taking the test tube, remove the test tube from this setup and light a matchstick near the mouth of the test tube. You will get burning sound or pluck sounds. So that shows that hydrogen gas is present in the test tube, because hydrogen is a combustible gas. So So these are some of the questions that might come up. The main important thing is diagram is very important. It can be asked for 2 marks. So what did you see in this decomposition reaction? So always, in order to carry out decomposition reaction, we require energy either in the form of heat, light or electricity. Remember, heat. See, we discussed so many reactions. Calcium carbonate or limestone breaks down into quicklime and carbon dioxide. We needed heat. Then silver chloride in the presence of sunlight means light energy decomposes to silver and chlorine. And finally electrolysis of water, we need electricity. So decomposition reaction requires energy. What does it mean? Decomposition reaction, in order to occur, absorb heat. So that's why decomposition reaction are endothermic reactions. The third type of reaction is a displacement reaction. Right? So we discussed a very small example in the beginning, that is change in color, types of changes that take place in a chemical reaction. So change in color, you might, if you remember, I told give an example of displacement reaction. So let us see what are this. So displacement reaction is a chemical reaction in which a more reactive element displaces less reactive elements from its compound. So both metals and non-metals take part in the displacement reaction. So let's see the example. We'll go and I'll explain you this. So there are 2 examples I have taken. So first one, this I took in that, if you remember, change in color. So copper sulfate, iron displaces copper from copper sulfate solution to form iron sulfate and copper is obtained. So this is called displacement reaction. So very important thing here to remember is more reactive element, right? So by nature iron is more reactive than copper. Iron is more reactive than copper. That's why iron can displace copper from copper sulfate solution to form ferrous sulfate. But again the reverse is not possible. Copper cannot displace iron from iron sulfate or ferrous sulfate solution. So what should be used now? We need more reactive metal than iron to displace it. So we can take help of aluminium, right? Aluminium can displace iron from ferrous sulfate solution to form aluminum sulfate and we can get iron. So like this we have a series called as reactivity series of metals, where more reactive metals, right, or more reactive elements, reactivity series of elements, where more reactive elements can displace less reactive elements from their compounds. So in nature highly reactive metal is potassium and the next is sodium. Highly reactive non-metal is fluorine. Then as you come down in the reactivity series, very less reactive elements are gold, platinum, silver. See, remember, gold, if was highly reactive in nature, we would be never wearing gold ornaments, rings, right? Remember, you might have the gold ornaments or this thing, gold ornaments, rings or chains of which are left even by your grandmothers. See, wherever excavation takes place, we can still get gold coins of different dynasties, right? They might be hundreds and hundreds of years old. So why the gold is still surviving without any reaction, right? Because gold does not react. It is very less reactive element. At the same time, you keep an iron nail outside for some 3 or 2 weeks, right? Under moist conditions it get rust. So that's why these are the reactivity series of elements you will be learning in the chapter metals and non-metals. So again, lead being more reactive than cuprous chloride can displace copper from their solution, chloride solution, and forms lead chloride and copper metal. Right, so next the thing I want you to remember is this reaction, the compound should be always in the form of solution or molten state, then only we can have displacement reaction. Both cannot be solid. Remember, iron and copper sulfate. Copper sulfate is actually crystal, so if you put iron nail into copper sulfate crystal, reaction does not take place. So only two conditions where displacement reaction takes place is the compound should be in solution state or in molten state. What is molten state? Molten state is a condition where you take the compound to a stage where it melts and becomes liquid. Right, so only in two conditions we can have displacement reaction. One in solution state or aqueous state, and other in molten state. Yes. So the same, next is the double displacement reaction. Same, the next step of double displacement reaction. So what is double displacement reaction? Right, it's a type of chemical reaction where two compounds react, and positive ions, those are cations, and the negative ions, right, of the two reactants switch places, forming two new compounds or products. Right, so what is this? This is almost similar to displacement reaction. So in a displacement reaction we had one element and one compound, but here we have two compounds. So what they are telling, the positive ions, that are cations, and the negative ions switch places. So let us see what are those. So as you can see there, let me have a write on it. Okay, so here we have sodium sulfate solution. So what does it contain? It contains sodium cation plus and sulfate. Right, if you remember in 9th standard 3rd chapter, I told you to remember that particular table, right? Ions and their charges, right? So this is the same thing. So what does sodium sulfate contain? Sodium sulfate contains sodium ion, positive ion, that is cation, and sulfate, what? Negative ion or anion. In the same way, if I come to barium chloride solution, so what we have? Barium, sorry, I am writing with mouse, so it may not come so clearly. I'll try my best. So barium and chlorine. Right, so as you can see there, sodium positive, barium positive, sulfate negative, and chlorine negative. According to definition, what it says? Right, the two compounds react and a positive, right here, positive ions and negative ions of the two reactants switch places. So what is happening here? Sodium sulfate solution reacts with barium chloride to form barium sulfate. As you can see there, this is going with this and this is going with this, right? So they are just switching places. But what is the difference between double displacement and displacement? As you can see there, here I'll just even explain the one. This is Fe, right? Iron is a cation, so Fe plus, and I have copper plus and SO4, copper 2, sorry, and 2 minus. So here metallic parts or cations remain same, only the non-metallic part, that are anions, change their place. But here, as you can see there, the non-metallic part changes their positions and everything remains the same. Right, so this is the difference between your displacement and double displacement reactions. Right, so let me take out all these things. Right, so next the fourth and the last type of reaction, we have oxidation and reduction reactions. Right, so the oxidation and reaction reactions are together called as redox reactions. So let us discuss about them one by one. Right. So in a substance, if a substance loses oxygen and gains hydrogen in a reaction, is said to be oxidized, and the reaction is said to be oxidation reaction. Remember, whenever a substance loses oxygen, whenever a substance gains, whenever a substance loses oxygen or gains hydrogen, we call it as a oxidation reaction. Right, so this is an example for this. When we heat copper oxide, it decomposes to we get pure copper and oxygen gas is released. So here, as you can see there, copper oxide is losing oxygen, right? CuO is losing this oxygen, right? So this is example of oxidation reaction. So next, if a substance gains oxygen and loses hydrogen, it is said to be reduction reaction, right? So as you can see there, now copper, when reacts with hydrogen gas, so again remember, this can also be taken where, as you can see there, hydrogen combines with oxygen present in copper oxide to form water, and we get copper metal. So there are two types of reactions here, right? Together oxidation is also taking place, and at the same time reduction is also taking. So what you need to understand is, compound that loses oxygen gets reduced, that's why we call it as reduction. Compound that loses oxygen gets reduced, and that takes oxygen gets oxidized, right? So these are combination of two, oxidation and reduction. So reaction in which oxidation and reduction takes place simultaneously are called as redox reaction, means both reduction and oxidation takes place, right? So now here hydrogen plays a very important role, right? So it reduces copper oxide to copper, so that's why hydrogen is a reducing agent here. So we will see in the next topic here. As you can see there, oxidizing agents and reducing agents. Fine. So if a substance gives oxygen or gains hydrogen, which is, or in the substance which is reduced itself and oxidizes other. So oxidizing agent is what? Which gives oxygen. So as you can see there, zinc oxide and carbon. So carbon reacts with zinc oxide, here. So carbon gets reduced because it loses oxygen, carbon gains oxygen, it gets oxidized. Fine. So again reducing agent, right? So which gives hydrogen, and gains oxygen. Exactly the reverse of oxygen. Oxidizing agents gives oxygen and gains hydrogen, whereas reducing agent gives hydrogen and gains oxygen. So these are example of reducing agent here. So remember the two types of reaction, that is oxidation and reduction reaction. Oxidation reaction is a reaction where oxygen is lost or hydrogen is gained. Reduction reaction, oxygen is gained and oxygen is lost, and when these two reactions occur simultaneously, we call them as redox reactions. Right, so the last few topics of your chapter, that is first thing is corrosion. Right, so as you can see in the definition, that the process of slow conversion of a metal into their undesirable compounds due to their reaction with oxygen, water, acids, gases, etc. present in the atmosphere is called corrosion. So corrosion is a very a common phenomenon that we see, as I told, due to different things in the environment, many things get spoiled. For example, iron gets spoiled or gets rust when exposed to air. Any iron article kept outside, keep it for a long time outside, as you can see that it will get rust, right? And acids, how acids are important for spoiling the different things. So the first thing, rusting, let us discuss that, and I will go in detail about different substances. So iron, when reacts with oxygen, right, and moisture, forms a red substance called rust, right? The other examples that are taken is, see, black coating on the silver coin is silver sulfide. It is formed by a reaction of silver with hydrogen sulfide in the atmosphere. See, any black girls might be wearing right, what we can say, pile in their legs, right? So after some days you can see black coating on it. What is that? See here, the silver reacts with silver sulfide in the atmosphere, and the reaction of silver hydrogen sulfide in the atmosphere, that's why a black coating forms on it. Then a green coating on the copper in the copper carbonate. It is formed by a reaction of copper with carbon dioxide, moisture and oxygen in the atmosphere. Very important. See, we use different copper utensils in a home, right? Some might be drinking water from copper cups, or they might be having copper tanks. Maybe for puja we may use copper utensils. So you can observe that after some time or after some days, it gets a green coating on the top, right? The copper gets a green coating on the top. Why is it? Why is that? Because as you can see there, the copper reacts with carbon dioxide, moisture and oxygen in the atmosphere, and its green coating. So these examples were very good explanation, or very good reason why corrosion takes place. So I said about iron, then silver, and then copper. So these three are important for exam point of view. They may ask what happened and why did it got corroded, right? Okay, rancidity, right? This comes with food. Again, a taste and odor of food material containing fat and oil changes when they are left exposed to air for a long time. This is called rancidity. It is caused due to oxidation of fat and oils present in the food material, right? So when you cook something, for example, today your mother might have cooked puri in a home. So will you eat the same puri after 4 or 5 days, right? It's not possible, because you know that food is a biodegradable material. It gets spoiled, right? So after some time, rancidity is a process where the food that is cooked in oils and fats will change its taste and odor as they get exposed to air for a long time, right? So you might have gone to bakery to get potato chips. So if the stock is little bit old, you will start feeling a smell, some foul smell coming out of it, right? So that is due to rancidity. And again, remember, most of the food that we cook in a home are either oils, right? Oils. But during special occasions, we cook food in what? Ghee. We cook food in ghee. So especially during festival time, right? Right? We prepare different fruits. Sorry, not fruits. We prepare different sweets. So again, remember, there is something called as shelf life. Shelf life is a life in which a food or an food prevents from getting rancid. So always remember, the food that is cooked in ghee can stay fresh for a longer time. That's why most of the sweets that we make are made up of ghee, especially during festival. And you go to different sweet shops, right? Most of them are prepared in ghee because it increases the lifespan of the food that is prepared, ghee food. And the same time, the food that is prepared in oil will get spoiled earlier than the food that is cooked in ghee or dalda. So you will learn about this in the chapter carbon and its compounds. It comes in that, right? So this is called as rancidity, right? So how can we prevent this rancidity, right? Now prevention. First let us come to corrosion. How can we prevent corrosion from happening? Rusting, how can we prepare, right? So iron can be prevented from rusting by applying grease, oil, paint on the surface, so that the upper surface does not come in contact with moisture and it does not get rust, right? And again, as you can see there, silver articles and our copper articles can be washed by what we have something called as pitambari, right? Do you remember? Your parents or your mother might be cleaning your silver articles or copper articles from pitambari, right? So this I'll explain in the chapter acid, bases and salts and metal. You just remember it, right? So this is some of the ways by which we can prevent corrosion and rusting. So remember again, rusting can be prevented by applying oil, grease and paint on the surface of iron, and silver articles can be cleaned with certain substances. Silver and copper articles can be cleaned with certain substances, so that we can again get them back. Fine. Next, how can we prevent rancidity? So as you can see there, most of the packed foods like our chips and all, not our locally made chips. If we go for companies like Lay's and Bingo, they're all what? Fluffy in nature. They are all bulged up packets. What is that? Right. So when they add chips in them, they again fill that plastic bag with nitrogen gas. So nitrogen is a very good antioxidant, means it does not allow oxidation. So as you can see there, rancidity can be prevented by using various methods, such as by adding antioxidants to the food material, storing food in a airtight container, and by flushing out air with nitrogen. So any air present will be taken out and nitrogen gas can be put into that. So these are some of the methods by which rancidity can be prevented. Very important. How can we prevent rancidity, or how can we prevent corrosion or rusting from exam point of view? So children, this was your first chapter, chemical reactions and equations. So I have uploaded the soft copy of the chapter into the group. You go through that, read the textbook, read those topics. There are many more examples than this in the textbook. You go through that, and soon I'll upload the notes. You read the notes which is now given. Later on I'll give again extra questions on them. Right now you just read that, it's sufficient right now. So thank you for listening to me. So I'll come up with another topic very soon. Thank you.